Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for yet more dedicated legacy action. Today we're going to be playing a deck that I like to call Full Colour Palette. This is essentially a painter's deck that is utilising rainbow lands. So it's kind of like a 5-colour painter deck in the same way that Turbo Depths is a 5-colour deck. So we are running like the 8 welder shell here. So we've got our 4 Goblin Welders and our 4 Goblin Engineers. And we're supplementing that with an Oswald Fiddlebender as well to try and find pieces. And the aim of this painter deck is just to go fast. We're not doing any of the Fable of the Mirror Breaker stuff. We're just dropping a load of extra mana, playing out our little guys, and then using Experimental Synthesizer to try and draw through our deck really quickly and assemble our combo. We've got a few things to find silver bullet wise. So Lion's Eye Diamond, Twin Shot Sniper, Solga Lantern, Shadowspear if we need to go on the beatdown plan, Pithing Needle, Haywire Mite, which is sort of the new tech and is one of the reasons to be multicolored because you can activate the ability on it, and an Ensnaring Bridge because we're not really looking to aggro our opponent, we just need ways of defending ourselves, so hence the Ensnaring Bridge. And we've got sort of just the normal stuff here. We've got Pyroblast because we're a red heavy build. We've got a couple of portable holes to deal with things, and obviously Haywire Mite to deal with other things if necessary. And that's more or less it for the spells, but I think the lands is kind of the bit that's interesting to me. So we've got 6 artifact lands, 4 red ones, 1 white one, 1 multicolour one. Then we've got these 4 Cavern of Souls. We're going to be playing this and naming Artificer because Welder is an Artificer, Engineer is an Artificer, and Fiddlebender's an Artificer. So all of these cards will be uncounterable and it will help cast the mana cost of both of them. And it can also use the colourless side to play a Painted Servant without any problem. So in theory, we should be able to jump through a few extra hoops by having uncounterable guys to leverage here. Then we have Mana Confluence, which taps for all of our colours. Well, it taps for red, white, and also can use the green on the Haywire Mite. Then we have a couple of Spire of Industry, which is... Let me just pull it out here for you. So it adds 1 colourless, but if you've got an artifact, then you can use it like a Mana Confluence. So it's a Mana Confluence that doesn't hurt you necessarily. But because you need to have an artifact for it to work, we only wanted 2 of these to begin with instead of the Mana Confluences being a 2 of. Because we want the Mana Confluence, because that can just cast a Welder on 1 if we have no artifacts. So I think that's more important to have. Then we have the classic 4 as a Saga, which can tutor for our Mox Opals, our Lines of Diamond, and our 1-drops here. And obviously the Grindstone, which is our combo. If you're not familiar, Painted Servant, Grindstone is a combo where you can mill your opponent and all the cards will be the same colour because of Grindstone. Because of Painter, and then the Grindstone will hit them all. So that's what we're trying to do here. This is more of a proof of concept today rather than like a fleshed out deck list. So the core of this deck is pretty much similar to one that a friend of mine, Lightwalker, ran. He's one of the better Painter players out there. He ran something very similar to this. I'm messing around with the mana base to see what is possible with the mana base and see if you can stretch to these colours. And then once we stretch the colours, we're going to see in later videos perhaps if we can add more spells of different colours and morph the deck around and see quite how far we can push the ability to have rainbow coloured mana in this deck. Right, onto the sideboard. 2 Wear Tears and 1 Haywire Mites. We've got more answers for artifacts and enchantments. A Torpor Orb that we can bring in and tutor for using Oswald. This is for things like Doomsday and Death and Taxes. Yes, it does impact our Goblin Engineer, but when we're boarding it in, it's going to be way better against them than it is against us. 4 Leyline in the Void. I've spoken about this every time I play Leyline in the Void, which is very often. It's just a great card. 3 removal spells for little guys or big guys. And 2 removal spells that can hit a string of things. This could be Pyrokinesis rather than Fury because we're probably not going to be doing that much attacking, but I think I just wanted the Fury here. We have 1 Canonist to supplement the 1 Canonist in the main, just in case we need an additional one, so we're more likely to draw it in the matchups where it matters. And we've got an additional Red Blast because, you know, blue decks are everywhere. This could have been a Veil of Summer or something, which is something I was thinking about having perhaps, which might have been better or more interesting. But we're going to just play with it for now. And a lot of the rainbow stuff we're doing here is more of proof of concept, as I said. So I apologise if my voice is a little bit off today. I've got a bit of a cold, so I'm a bit tired as well. But I'm trying to get this one done for you. And because I've played a fair bit of Painter, not so much the red Painter, but I understand the machinations between Urza Saga and Paint and stuff. So I'm hoping that I won't make too many mistakes while feeling a little under the weather today. Alright, before we jump into a league, let me just say if you can subscribe to my channel, that really helps me out. Likes and comments are always welcome, especially comments of the sort of things I can add to supplement this mana base. Like how far can I push it? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Alright, let's jump into a Legacy League with full colour palette. Okay, so we're on the draw for this one. We have our combo. Seems like a good place to start, so I'm going to keep this. We can turn 3 this. We can play out the Saga on 1, and then it can go and get us a Lion's Eye Diamond. Ornithopter. So this looks like it's going to be Hammer Time, which is a deck I have played on this channel before. Paradise Mantle, sure. Okay, there's a Saga. They shouldn't really have much in the way of disruption for our combo here. So we'll just play out our pieces here. The reason we're playing this out, rather than trying to hope that we draw another land here, is this means that even if we don't draw a land, we can still combo on turn 3. Because this can find us a Lion's Eye Diamond, which will give us the mana to activate the Grindstone. Sure. So equipping Paradise Mantle to the Ornithopter. We're not doing anything with it. Alright. Now it's possible they have a Swords to Plowshares in their deck. But we have many Painter's Servants here. We'll name blue for the purposes of Pyroblast. Yep, so there's a Swords to Plowshares. That's fine. So we still have the kill next turn because you can play another Painter, get the Lion's Eye Diamond, and activate the Grindstone. So this turn we want our opponent to tap out for a load of stuff and hopefully not kill us. Stoneforge Mystic, okay? Ideally what we'd like to draw here is a land so that we can hold up a Pyroblast perhaps. So we can blow up the Ornithopter so they don't have the mana to interact with us. We did not get that, okay. Let's go hunting. We will get the Lion's Eye Diamond here. Painted Servant. And then blue. Now the issue we have here is if we crack this and try and grindstone our opponent, and they do have another Swords to Plowshares, we pretty much lose the game. But what we can do here is untap with a Pyroblast and then blow up their whatever they have left mana-wise. Another Stoneforge, sure. Sorry, the Stoneforge activation, sorry. Cauldron complete, that's fine. You can hit us with that. We don't mind. So we also know they've got the Hammer of Nazan in their hand as well. If we draw another land, we can just play another Painter, and that way we can play around one Swords to Plowshares quite easily. Okay. So our opponent has... This is a little bit tricky. I don't think our opponent can kill us next turn. Let's cast this Portal Hole. So what we're going to do with this one is we're going to exile the Paradise Mantle. Stop our opponent having mana. We can take another hit from this Cauldron token. Now we might have been able to win a few turns ago, but like I said, if they did have the ability to kill our Painted Servant, then we just lose the game. And I'd much rather take a little bit of damage and not risk that. Now there comes a point where we have to go for it anyway. Okay, so this is Hammer of Thingamajig. So this will clip straight onto the guy. What does it do? This is +2/+0 indestructible. But it does make all the equipments jump straight to a creature. It's pretty good. Okay, so this turn we are fine, I think. We destroy their planes. And we move to the next phase. Oh, they didn't float any mana then. Okay, so conceded there. Alright. So we played around Swords to Plowshares there quite effectively, I thought. Let's jump into sideboarding. So they're a hammer deck, so this is hopefully going to be where these sorts of things shine nicely. Our Canonist in the main deck is going to be useless. These Furies are pretty good. I think we might be on a board out Pyroblast plan. Let's have a look. The Ensnaring Bridge is going to be good here. We don't need a Soul Guide Lantern. Pithing Needle is decent. So we need to cut one thing here to fit these bits and pieces in. Are we realistically going to be trying to race them with our own Shadowspear? I don't realistically think we can. We could trim an Engineer, but I think we need to keep our combo pieces high. I think we're probably getting rid of the Shadowspear here. If we can just keep their board clean, we should be alright. And let's actually take them out of the deck and click Submit. We could also bring in these Swords to Plowshares as well. I don't hate this. So if we get rid of a Pithing Needle, and we just need one more cut here. Fiddlebenders. They do have Caracas, so the Fiddlebender is slightly less impressive here. They're probably going to bring in graveyard hate, so maybe we trim one of our engineers. Let's try this. How does this look? Oh, they've just conceded for some reason. Okay, I'll take that. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with this hand. I think I was probably going to ship this one because there's 2 caverns, which is something that maybe we need to look at mana base wise, which is one of the reasons I'm playing the deck today, to try and work out how greedy we can be with different lands. So if this was a Spire of Industry instead, maybe that would be better. So maybe we're looking at a 4-3-3 split with our rainbow lands, perhaps. We'll keep that in mind. Let's go on to the next round. This hand is a turn 3 combo that can't be broken up by counter spells, because we can put this on Scarecrow and play the Painted Servant that way. So we're going to keep this. Our opponent is on the play though. So if they're playing a fast combo deck or something with disruption, yep, that's going to take away our Painted Servant. That's a little bit awkward. That changes how we need to approach the rest of this game now. If we draw a painter here, then we can go back to playing as a Saga, but I think, yep, so we should probably just play the Rustvale Bridge here. Can't be wastelanded, and it gives us both our colours, and it means we can play as a Saga next turn and start churning out tokens a turn after that. It's a bit slow, but we had our combo broken up there. We can also use our Mox Opals as Lotus Petals later on if we need to. Soul Guide Lantern. I'm okay to play that out. So our opponent not playing a second land makes me believe they're more likely to be a combo deck, because they kept like a pretty full grip to begin with. So we're going to have to... So we can play out a Mox Opal here. They know we have a Mox Opal. And then we can use this to draw from the Soul Guide Lantern if we want, or we can just leave it in play because it's going to make our Urza Saga tokens quicker, and I think trying to win the game quickly is going to be useful here. There's also an argument that the Soul Guide Lantern should be a Nile Spellbomb. Okay. A Lotus Petal. That's certainly leaning me more towards the combo that I thought. Grief. Okay, they're evoking Grief. This could be a Reanimator style deck. I just had a weird starting hand. Sure, goodbye Mox Opal. Reanimate targeting the Grief. I don't think I care about that. We outrace this Grief easily. So we'll let them have this. We lose to a big guy. We don't lose to Grief here. Our opponent's already on 14 as well, and we're going to be having some pretty big Urza Saga tokens. Now, Serenity is probably not going to be our friend in this particular matchup, but we'll play out an artifact. So we got loads of artifacts, so our token is going to be massive. We can't block the Grief, but we can make a token, then we can make a token and equip Shadowspear, and we've got their graveyard covered. So I'm liking our chances in this matchup. Just make sure we remember to make the token end of turn. Did they forget their creature had menace, perhaps? Let's make this guy. So we draw a Goblin Welder. Interesting. I think we still are on the Shadowspear plan here. And that's just our best way of marshalling our resources. So we can play out the Welder and equip the Shadowspear this turn. Equips this guy. Yeah, so there's a concession from our opponent. So we've seen Reanimate, Grief, and Lotus Petal Thoughtseize. And an Animate Dead. So I think I would like to play 4 Leyline of the Void in this deck. I think that is a pretty reasonable shout. The Torpor Orb can stop Grief from hitting us if that's the thing we're interested in. These portable holes are not great for us. They can hit the Serenity though, and so can Haywire Mite. So maybe they're worth keeping in. Twin Shot Sniper is rubbish. We don't need that. The Canonist is okay. The Pyroblasts here aren't great. By the time they're active, I think it's going to be too late. I think we're better off just... Let's have a look. So if we have these things, kind of almost tempted to board in a Wear Tear just to deal with the Serenity. The Pithing Needle can name Grizzlebrand, so it can mean that even if they do get a guy in play, it's not the end of the world for us. I think our plan is to race the Show and Tell lines. Well, we can have the Pyroblast for the Show and Tells. I think having one is probably okay here, because we can hit the Show and Tell with it, but we can also, later on, we can Painter it. But if we have multiple and they don't have Show and Tell, it's just a dead card if we don't have the Painter as well. So I think this is probably fine. So other cards I am kind of interested in is some number of these things, but I think Source to Plowshares is kind of trying to trying to solve the problem after it's already gotten out of hand. Because most of the time, there's going to be a Grizzlebrand in play, so if you source Plowshares, it's not very good. So I think this is the best setup we can have. They might not know we're playing Leyline. I think they have to expect it. They're going to be bringing in Serenities anyway, because we're an artifact-based deck, though. I don't think this is good enough to be reanimated. We have to mulligan. This, on the other hand, might be good enough because we have a Soulguide Lantern here. Have a lot of Welders. I think we keep this. It has a piece of Graveyard Hate in. Our opponent's probably going to discard our hand, but I don't think we can just keep fishing for Leyline. On the play, this hand is certainly a lot better. Thoughtseize. Are they targeting us? Okay, so we're going to lose our Soulguide Lantern here. We can get our Soulguide Lantern back next turn with our Goblin Welder. So we're going to play Cavern of Souls, naming Artificer, play a Goblin Welder, and then we can play a Mox Opal and turn that into a Soulguide Lantern next turn. But that's probably going to be too late, I would imagine. This is the turn where we draw a Leyline, I would imagine. That's usually how these things work. It was not a Leyline. Okay. Artificer. Let's play our little Goblin. And because we don't want this artifact to get discarded, because we want to make sure we have artifacts, we're going to play this out now. And then hope that they don't make a big fatty this turn. They might have just kept a hand with like a bit of disruption that has a slower way of making guys, because they still don't have a creature in the bin yet. Now if they drop a Serenity here, that's going to be less than ideal for us. A Faith is Looting. Okay. So they could Faith is Looting and reanimate this turn. That'd be the worst case scenario. But at least they're not choosing the creature, it's the one they have in hand. Okay, no creature. Interesting. That's very good for us. Okay, a Painter's Servant. That's also a pretty nice one. We're not actually going to play out the Painter's Servant. We're going to play out the... We're going to play out the Oswald here, because if they play a Serenity, this is the thing that gives us the best way of fighting it. Because then we can go and get Haywire Mite next turn and kill it. There's our Welder getting sourced to Plowshares here. Let's Cavern. It's just good deck building, right? Just two Artificers having a good time together. Artificing about. Not sure what our opponent's white mana is for. They could be casting Wear Tear on our Urza Saga. Okay, we won't attack with the Welder. We can do this at instant speed, so... Well, if they have a Tear... I have to be controlling them both when it resolves, don't I? So that's not really what we want. A Cavern of Souls. This one will also name Artificer. I don't think we have to worry about counter spells from our Reanimator opponent. So I think this turn we play out our Painter's Servant. Now the one issue we have is we don't have the white mana for the Mox Opal for the ability to Fiddlebend away. Maybe we should play out the other Welder. I'm just trying to think if our opponent has any sort of sweepery type effects. I've not seen any in Reanimator for a long time. So we're going to play this guy out still. We've got our cards on the table. Like we can beat a Grizzlebrand more or less at the moment. Faith is Looting, sure. We don't need to reanimate our... When I say reanimate, we don't need to Soulguide Lantern yet. Okay. So we have the kill available to us this turn. Okay, they're cracking a Bloodstained Mire. And they're cracking another Bloodstained Mire. What have they got for 3 mana? Black, white, red. Oh, is this going to be a card I don't know? Wear Tear. Targeting our Urza Saga and our Painter's Servant. Well, we can't do much about some of these things, but what we can do is we can weld targeting this and targeting our Soulguide Lantern. We will get rid of the Faith is Looting. Then we'll make a construct, since we don't really have anything else going on right now. If we get some white mana, we can Fiddlebend into our guy, into our Grindstone, but that's not something we have available to right now. Oh, okay. Oh, we have the ability to go and get the Grindstone actually now because of the enough artifacts being in play. So we can exile their graveyard twice. So I think our opponent is dead here. Serenity doesn't win them the game. Another Wear Tear doesn't win them the game either. So I think we're okay. Faith is Looting. Be my guest. We can crack the Soulguide Lantern and then bring it back by sacrificing a construct to this welder. Okay, sure. So we got the match. Yeah, felt good. We're a little bit shy on white mana here, so maybe 4 Cavern of Souls is too many for a 60-card deck with Oswald in. So that's good to know. If this was a Spire of Industry, it would have been better. Because obviously Spire of Industry gives you the mana for Oswald or Engineer, because you're not going to have an artifact. You're only going to be able to activate the ability when you have an artifact in play. So the Spire will always be live for those. All right, let's go on to round 3. We're on the play for round 3, and this is our opening hand. Now, we are a little bit stuck here because of the Spire of Industry. If this was a Cavern of Souls, it would be better. So there's some information for you right there. But I think this hand is pretty keepable, though. So I'm going to say keep, and I'm going to lead off Urza Saga and Soulguide Lantern. The Soulguide Lantern will then turn on our Spire of Industry for round 2. For turn 2 even. Let's play this one out. Our opponent has Reanimate as their icon, so why wouldn't I try and cast a turn 1 Soulguide Lantern? I suspect that this isn't going to do anything against them. But you never know. It can still be a thing that turns on our Spire of Industry and sacrifices to Oswald Fiddlebender. Once upon a time. That doesn't look like a very Reanimate card to me. Gaia's Cradle, sure. So we've got a Cradle coming down the line. A Lamarel. This makes me think it's more likely the Natural Order Fiend Artisan build rather than the standard elves. If you know what I mean. Experimental Synthesizer. So we get our Spire of Industry out here. We have choices. We can play the Fiddlebender. This is going to need to find us some mana, perhaps. Tricky to decide what to do here. I think we're supposed to play out the Fiddlebender here. Let me think on this. This is the most mana efficient way we can spend our turn. We could play Welder Pithing Needle, but I think the best thing we can do, we could always, I don't think we want to play Experimental Synthesizer this turn because we can hit a land with it. So I think a process of elimination, we want to play the Fiddlebender. And then next turn, hopefully we can do some stuff with the Synthesizer. This is showing the downside of running the Spire of Industry here because you can't get the Goblin Welder online. So you could argue this should be maybe be a Gemstone Mine even, but I don't think Gemstone Mine's very good. But we do need mana on turn 1. We do need red mana on turn 1. Could always run good old-fashioned City of Brass. But because we have so many colourless costs in our deck, the Spire of Industry being able to tap for 1 colourless is quite important. Haywire Mite. That's a good one. Fiend Artisan. Okay, so we have choices here of what we name with our Pithing Needle. Are they just going to blow up our Urza Saga here? Yep, I thought they might. Yep. It's a little bit sad, but it's what we can do. A Grindstone. I think what we're supposed to do here is play out the Synthesizer and try and hit a land, because I don't think we win this game without hitting land. So let's try this out. We can also hit Mox Opal. Goblin Engineer. So that is not what we required. Not being able to get the land off of our, the Mox Opal off of our Urza Saga is also costing us quite a bit there. Sure. So they could cast a Natural Order this turn. So that'll be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So they're probably better off casting it next turn. So if they have a Natural Order next turn, I think we lose. Okay, so chewing something up with Fiend Artisan here. So if we'd have played the Pithing Needle last turn instead of the Synthesizer, but the thing is we kind of need to find that. Okay. Hitting all of our artifacts, not great for us. But this is why we have Furies in the board. I think we're probably done in this game. A Pyroblast, not really what we wanted. So we can play out a Welder here. Doesn't really do much. We can play Pithing Needle, which might keep us alive for a little bit longer. We can experiment. We can get rid of the Experimental Synthesizer to get a 2-drop. But that's only going to be something like a Grindstone. Sorry, not Grindstone, a Painter. But I guess what we can do is we can get a Painter, which will turn on this. And then the next turn we can turn the Painter into an Ensnaring Bridge and hopefully stay alive that way. So I think this is what we have to do. We'll sacrifice this one because this can find us a land. So what are you going to find us? I bet it's going to find us one of the things we cheer for. A Grindstone. Okay, that's not the one. So you have to just get this one and then blue. We have to hope they don't have the thing this turn. Getting a little bit done by our mana this game, but it happens every now and then. Allosaurus Shepherd. Okay. Elvish Visionary. So Allosaurus Shepherd is especially annoying because they can attack and then pump afterwards, so the Ensnaring Bridge doesn't actually do anything. We kind of need to find... If we draw a Lion's Eye Diamond, that would keep us alive. Provided we don't get natural order this turn. A Caracas. Okay, so we're going to lose our Oswald, so we can't... Oh no. They are natural ordering us. Yep, so that's us done. Alright, so fortunately we have... Torpor Orb is pretty good in this matchup. The Furies look rather good to me. Ethersworn Canonist is fine. I don't know if fine's good enough. I think this is probably Pyroblast out. They are red cards, but we still have a lot of red cards here. The Soulguide Lantern is a thing that has text. The Haywire Mite not so much. Because they're not actually playing out lots and lots of artifacts, lots of creatures generally. They sometimes do play 2 spells a turn. But it's a case of, I think just keeping their board clear is better, because these aren't the ones that draw loads of cards with Glimpse and have chains. They're just kind of playing a mid-rangey game. So I think this is the way we want to sideboard here. So we keep our combo intact, we keep this, which can shrink our opponent's Fiend Artisans, as well as play around endurances that our opponent is probably going to have. But we're going to be playing a slightly more mid-rangey thing by doing these. The Torpor Orb obviously doesn't interact very well with our Goblin Engineer, so there is an argument for swapping one of these engineers for a Canonist, but having the ability to tutor for a thing into our graveyard is probably good enough. Sorry, not tutor, to weld around is probably good enough, and if we play this, this is one of the things that finds our Torpor Orb in the first place. So I think we're going to submit like this. I do not need 3 Mox Opals in my opening hand. We will mulligan. Okay. This seems alright. We've got removal. We've got an engine. We've got a tutor here. We can throw back the spare Oswald. This is alright. We have access to all our colours. Play this out. Tap it for red. We will play Goblin Welder. We'll pass a turn. Next turn we can play Synthesizer. And this can put itself in the graveyard if necessary as well. And then we can hold up this Source to Plowshares for their 2-drop. This is going to be a Mana Elf. Oh no, an Elvish Claim. Okay, so we'll just snap this off and kill this, I think. We'll see what we draw, obviously, but... Painter's Servant. Okay. So I think step 1 is make this. We'll see if we find anything useful off of it. A land, maybe? Another Experimental Synthesizer. I think... Do we have to... Source of Plowshares, the Reclaimer? I don't think we have to this turn. I think we can just get more meat into play. This. A Saga. That was unfortunate. Alright, we'll say go. We will not attack with our Welder. So they can spend their second turn shooting up a Cradle if they want to, but I imagine they're going to play more things out first. But if they do, then we can hit a creature and the Cradle doesn't tap for anything then. Okay, I besage you from hand, not being kept for the purposes of using its activated ability. Okay, they're just snapping off a Cradle now. I think that's fine for us. Oh no, they're getting a Bayou. Oh, they're trying to snuff out our guy. Okay, that's fine. Interesting. Painter's Servant. So I think we just Oswald this turn. And then we can start firing up these into card advantage. So we can go and get the Torpor Orb, which will shut down their best natural order lines. Caracas, why you do this to me? That's very unfortunate. So they're going to spin up a Cradle. A Goblin Engineer. Okay, so I think we cast this for red and a colourless. And we go and put a Grindstone into our graveyard. I think that's the way we win this game. We could put the Ensnaring Bridge in. But we have to imagine our opponent has Force of Vigor. It's tricky. So they've got 1 land card in their graveyard. I could put a Twin Shot Sniper in. But I don't know how useful that is actually going to be, because this is probably going to be 3-4 quite soon. Difficult decision. I think it needs to be the Ensnaring Bridge. We're a ways off of being able to combo here. So I think just having a little safety net is going to be useful. Yeah, so this is going to spin up Cradle. Oh no, just a Dryad Arbor. Okay. So they're building up for a natural order turn. These decks tend to not run a lot of removal, so our engineer should be fine. The Caracas has really set us back this game. Is this going to be a natural order for something scary? Okay. Greenstone for 3, so this could be something that blows up. Okay, this blows up creature or planeswalker. So we're probably losing our little lad there. That's a bit of a pity. Okay, so just getting the beats in with this guy. Kind of need another mana there. I think we just have to play this guy again. So I've used 2 removal spells on it. So this one can actually go and get us our Grindstone, I think. Or we can get the Twin Shot Sniper to finish off the Grist. I quite like that as a play. Yeah, let's try that. We just need to dig into our deck and get these synthesizers sacked. If they've got a land here, they can natural order, but it's not a very exciting one. Unless they've got some sort of weird haymaker, like... I'm not really sure. Okay, so it's just coming in. We've taken a lot of damage from our lands here, which is another thing that we're looking at in terms of this mana base. Okay, so I think we want to get back our Ensnaring Bridge here. And we'll tap this for red. And we'll sacrifice this. Can we find a land? We can find a land. That's exciting. An endurance. A little bit mean, truth be told. And we'll play this. Name artificer. So I think we have to portable hole the reclaimer here. We portable hole the reclaimer. Yeah. I think that's what we have to do here. I feel like we're losing this one, unfortunately. I think the turn where they had the Caracas was the real decider. Now we're seeing the downside of this Cavern of Souls because we can't cast this Swords to Plowshares, which would save us a lot of damage this turn, so we're going to take 4 this turn. Possibly more. Yeah, our opponent had quite an interactive draw, which is not great for us. We're definitely seeing some of the limitations of this mana base, so this is good. This is what we wanted to see from the deck. So they're going to hit us for 4 this turn. So this is going to turn off our Mana Confluence very soon. Okay. And a Wasteland. What are you going to hit? Sure. That's fine. So if they have a second Endurance, we die. Kind of feels like they do. If I kill this now, they're way more likely to play their second Endurance instead of holding it back for something. An Opposition Agent. Yeah, this is us dead. That was a pity. We kind of got a bit bottlenecked on lands again. And the Caracas draw to stop us using our synthesizer was very good, and we just didn't hit enough mana on here. So this is the same amount of lands that was in the 250 decks that I sort of bastardized into making this. But you can't win them all, so let's go on to the next round. We've got another hand here that doesn't really have the mana to support it, so we'll have to mulligan. This hand seems fine, we will keep it. We'll throw back one of these cards. I'm inclined to throw back the spare Painter's Servant here, since we can work through the other bits and pieces. And you never know when a Soulguide Lantern comes in handy. Flooded Strand. An Underground Sea. Into Thoughtseas. Okay, we're going to lose... I'm not sure, probably our Engineer, but it could be the Painter. My opponent's opening suggests to me Doomsday. Yeah, the Engineer. This is a thing that lets us find the other piece as well as just giving us advantage over numerous turns. So... we can play out the Mana Confluence here, and I think we play out the Mana Confluence and Pyroblast something. We're under the impression that our opponent is playing Doomsday, so we can Pyroblast a cantrip or a personal tutor. Now they know this is coming. Yikes. Our life total is probably not going to matter in this matchup, so we're fine to let that sit, unfortunately. The Wasteland is now making me think our opponent is on Death's Shadow, by the way. Although they did fetch an Underground Sea with their Flooded Strand, which is unusual to me. So, a little bit up in the air of what our opponent's list looks like. Because Wasteland is not a Doomsday card. They decided not to shuffle, which is not great for us. What are we doing here? We'll play Cavern of Souls. We'll name Artificer. And we'll play Soulguide Lantern. So if our opponent's trying to build up for a Murktide, Ooh, okay. This means our opponent is trying to play Murktide, is my impression. Now, we are slightly hamstrung by our Spire of Industry not being like a regular Rainbow Land because we don't have an artifact to go with it. Okay, we're just going to keep Wasteland on us. Sure. Not much we can do about that, just let it happen. So now we choose which of these we play out. I think we play out the Cavern of Souls here, and we'll name Scarecrow this time around. Because we want to be able to play our Painted Servant, and we can have our Pyroblast doing things then. Cycling, paying 2 life. This definitely looks a lot like Death Shadows. They got one card in hand that is a Underground Sea, and then they got some other cards too. Sure, our opponent just taken everything we have. This is probably going to take the Painted Servant, because that turns on everything else in our hand. At least it wasn't the Wasteland, I guess. A Lion's Eye Diamond. So we'll play this out, and we'll play out our Lion's Eye Diamond. This gives our Pyroblasts... This makes our Pyroblast actually able to be cast off of the Spire of Industry now. So we can hit a Murktide. Our opponent's on 13 life, so they're going to have to hurt themselves a bit more to play a Death Shadow, but they should be able to do that just with a fetch land or something. A Brainstorm. I don't think we hit this. We have to hold it back for the Murktides. Now, if they Wasteland us again, then sure, you've seen 3 Wastelands in your top quarter of your deck. Sometimes it will happen, sometimes it won't. Okay. So they could play a Death Shadow this turn, which is something we can't Pyroblast. It'll be a 3/3 this turn. Another Thoughtseize. Sure, take one of our Pyroblasts. Our opponent has disrupted us a great deal. A Cavern of Souls. I think we play this one on Artificer. So they might just be trying to clear the way for this Murktide. So they might not discard us. They might not play the Murktide until they can get rid of this Pyroblast. We can use the Lion's Eye Diamond to crack something like a Experimental Synthesizer. There's the Death Shadow. Okay, we can't interact with that. Not yet, at least. A Great Furnace. Sure. So we're going to get hit by this Death Shadow. And they got another one. So they will hit us for 5 this turn and hit us for 10 next turn. But if they have anything, they'll be hitting us for more. But I imagine if they have anything, they would have done it now just to make sure this clock is quicker. Okay. A Grindstone. How useful is this Grindstone going to be? It means if we draw Painter next turn, we get to win the game. As long as these Death Shadows don't grow. So if they counter this, we have to Great Furnace. We have to Pyroblast it. Okay, we can pay with the days. Force of Will. So these are going to be because they've bounced their Watery Grave. They can replay it and pump their Death Shadows to lethal. So I think we are dead here. As soon as they play their Watery Grave untapped, we all scoop. Okay, so Source to Plowshares is going to be good in this matchup. The Red Elemental Blast is probably going to be good in this matchup. The Lane on the Void is going to be good against the Murktides. But is that good enough? This Pithing Needle can name Wasteland, so I don't hate that. Solgar Landing can swap stuff out. The Portal Hole is pretty good. Twin Shot Sniper, not going to cut it against the creatures they're playing. The Canonist is okay. It stops our opponent multi-spelling, but really it's there for combo decks, the Canonist. I think these things that we bring in are just going to be better and buy us a lot more time. The Haywire Mite can go. So we're looking for one more cut here. Pithing Needle on Wasteland. Shadowspear. Now the problem with Pithing Needle is that we only get... We're not going to be able to get it off of Saga to name Wasteland. We have to kind of have it in our opener. Which is probably fine. But it's worth noting that that is a thing we have to contend with. The Portal Holes kills the... what's it called? Death Shadows. So looking at cutting one card here. Interesting. We could cut the Grindstone just because we have other tutor effects. I think that's fine. Powder Keg is the thing they have in their deck as well, which can blow up our lands. So this has lots of lands. It's very vulnerable to Powder Keg. So what is the play here? I think we play out the Spire Industry. Now, we're not going to Pyroblast the first thing they cast. We're not going to Pyroblast a Ponder on turn 1, for example. Taking 2 life. A Ponder, yeah. So we're not going to be Pyroblasting this. We need to save it for Murktides or forcing one of our things through. So next turn, we probably play out a Great Furnace. And that gives us white and red mana with only having 1 land that can get killed by a Powder Keg in play. And after that, it gets a little trickier. So we can't play around. We can't play the Painter with the Pyroblast right now. So I think we hold back right now. If our opponent has a Powder Keg, they can just, and we play the Mox Opal and come and just get a free 2-for-1. I'd rather not be in that situation. Whereas if they play a Powder Keg, we can play the Servant and then blow it up. Doughty Voidwalker. Sure. I think I will just kill this straight away. This puts their life higher to make Death Shadow harder to cast. So it buys us more turns. And it gets a creature off the board. We can Pyroblast this if necessary. Force of Will. They're really going hard on this. I think this is worth Pyroblasting because the only problem is they have Daze in their deck. I think we have to let this go. We can always blow it up with a Pyroblast later on anyway. That's a pretty good find. Let's play this one out. Play this one out. We go colourless. And 1, we'll play out Painter 7. And next time we can Grindstone playing around Daze. So this plays around Daze of 2 mana up. We will name... If we name blue, it does help them out a little bit though. But we have a Pyroblast that can stop removal spells. So we don't play out the Grindstone this turn. Powder Keg, very bad for us right now. We have to Pyroblast the Powder Keg if they play it. Snuff out. I think this is worth Pyroblasting. My plan is to cast Grindstone next turn. We're playing this around a Daze, but not a Force of Will. So they Force of Will, at least we're getting cards out of their hand. But having to find another Painter Servant is going to be difficult. If they have another removal spell, fair enough. But still a 2-for... Well, it'll be 2-for-2 in the end. It's not the end of the world. So if I'd have named black with the Painter Servant, I could have prevented the Snuff out, but then I wouldn't be able to use Pyroblast to counter Powder Keg. So I think we still had to name blue there. Opponent's paying 1 black mana is a Fatal Push. 2 black mana. What is this going to be? A Daze. Okay, we'll pay for the Daze. Okay, so now I'm going to get him to Turret, I think. Nope, Death Shadow. Another Death Shadow? Or is it the Thoughtseize? If I don't have it, we can Grindstone them. There is also the fact that they can use their Doughty Voidwalker to kill our guy. Which I'm hoping they don't realise, to be honest, because I don't know how we win this game if they work that one out. A Gurmag Angler, sure. I really need our opponent to attack us this turn. Oh, what a misplay. Unless they have a Snuff out in hand, then it's not a misplay. So we'll play this out. Play this out and play 1, 2, 3. Okay, we got it. Let's have a look at that deck. What are they board in? So we've got Hymns, Surgical, 2 Surgicals. Okay. Thought I played that was alright. Our opponent misplayed and helped us out. I am worried a little bit about Powder Keg, but that was a very Powder Keg, a hand that was very easy to be undone by Powder Keg. I don't think all our hands are going to look like that, so I think we're okay. So this hand doesn't really enjoy Wasteland very much. But other than that, it's pretty good. So I think I'm going to keep this. Let's play out a Lad. Let's see if they do anything about this Delver. This Welder. Okay, we got to stick that. That's fine. That's something at least. We can put a Mox Opal in the graveyard very easily because we have 2 of them. Okay, not a Wasteland. Excellent. A Brainstorm, sure. We have removal spell for the first threat. And we ideally just want to start experimental synthesizing on the next turn. They're brainstorming, cracking their fetch, taking more damage. It's going to be a Thoughtseize turn. Feels like a Thoughtseize turn to me. Fatal Push. So we don't get to do really silly things with our synthesizer. So we can play synthesizer first, but then we don't really go anywhere if we don't do that. The most mana efficient thing we can do is play the Urza Saga out and then play the Goblin Engineer. Again, this is a matchup where the life loss from Mana Confluence is relevant. Days. Sure. We cannot pay. So we're keeping the Mox Opals in hand because if we get hit by him to Turak, we'd rather lose like a spare Mox Opal. And they're more likely to be hit right now. Okay. So we've got another Brainstorm fetch land here. If we can find a 1 mana artifact, like a Soul Guide Lantern or something, we can turn on our synthesizer. Turn on our Mox Opal and then play another synthesizer. We can kind of chain some stuff out there. So we're hoping the first Experimental Synthesizer hits maybe an artifact land. That would be very good for us. Unless they have a powder keg, of course. And then we'll be very sad. Yep, so now they're cracking the fetch. And there's a Thoughtseize. So our hand's pretty redundant. They might just take the Swords of Plowshares here because it's the sort of odd one out, if you will. Yeah, there it goes. But they're not making a threat this turn, which is good for us. Pyroblast. That's fine. Okay, so this time we're synthesizing. I've not been very impressed with the synthesizers so far. I think the Mishra's research desk might be better in this deck than synthesizer because of the mana. Another synthesizer that I can't play. That's annoying. So we're kind of getting a little bit punished for our mana here. Although whatever build I was playing of this with this number of lands, like as a saga plus any land isn't going to make me able to cast that anyway. Right, so that's not a great turn for us, but we do have Murktide Regent protection. So we can kill a Murktide Regent once it comes into play. Our opponent's on 8 life. A Death Shadow, we can't kill that though. Let's see what we draw here. A Great Furnace. So we're always tapping this. What are we getting with this is the question. We don't really need a Mox Opal. I think we have to get a Grindstone just to facilitate wins that we can have. I think we start off with a Synthesizer. The other option there was also getting something enough mana so that we can use our Synthesizer to sack it, but I don't think that's a winning proposition. Okay, we'll play this. We can play this out, and we can sacrifice this one. So that's for white, that's for red. Get this one colourless floating still. If this is a 1-drop, we can play the Mox Opal and cast it. It's not. Okay. So now we have an option of whether or not we play out this Mox Opal to keep up our Pyroblast or not. Now we have very telegraphed play if we do that. And it will cost us 1 mana on our next turn. Now that extra 1 mana, if we draw Painter's Servant, could be 2 mana for Painter, 3 mana to kill them. So I think we're supposed to hold the Mox Opal in hand. Because of that, we can chump block with our Samurai token if we need to. And we can make another Samurai token next turn as well. We can kill the... We don't have to counter the Murktide, we can just... So the question is, do I take the 5 now and then try and block later? I think we should just take the +5 life when we can get it. I think that is the safer thing to do here. Because if I hold it back for too long, they might just have a removal spell and kill us. Yeah, okay, so they had the... So it would have been taking 7 that turn. And it only takes 1 fetch land there, and that makes it a 2-turn clock. So we were right to block it there, I think. That's bought us a turn. There's the Murktide Regent we were worried about. Our opponent has 3 cards in hand still. So we have to kill the Murktide Regent or kill them this turn. Let's try and destroy this. This can get Force of Willed. It did not get Force of Willed. Okay. That's nice for us. I think this turn we go red, white, and cast this guy. Because they can't kill us with the Death Shadow. We didn't see any like Greenland Berserk type nonsense in their deck when we milled it all. So this goes and fetches our Painter's Servant. So if this survives, we do get to Painter's Servant and kill them next turn. That's quite a big if though. Get the Painter's Servant here. Now our opponent can Surgical Extract it. We did see 2 Surgical Extractions in their deck, which does make our life a lot more difficult to try and win with that. But the situation we're in, I don't think we can afford to play around. Like I'm not like the only other thing we could get there is Ensnaring Bridge, and Ensnaring Bridge means that we what was that going for? The Mana Confluence, sure. So Ensnaring Bridge means that they surgically extract us and then kill us probably. Whereas at least the Painter's Servant, if they surgically extract us and kill us, fine. But the upside of having the Painted Servant is that we kill them. So it's the playing to win line rather than playing to not lose. Petty Theft. That's pretty annoying. So this is going to bash us for 7, which is notably not half of 16. So we might get another turn if they can't find a way of damaging themselves. We can crack our Synthesizer as well for a card. Okay. We'll play this one out. We have the Mox Opal, so we can play the second engine, so we can play the Engineer out as well. So we're going to name blacks, this can't be snuffed out. And then we're going to play this out. Also, it makes our Moxes look incredibly cool. I'm going to cast this. Red, red. So they have to kill both of our creatures. So what is this going to find? What is a useful thing for us to find here? I guess we get the Ensnaring Bridge, or do we get the Portable Hole here? This Portable Hole answers... No, I think we get the Ensnaring Bridge. That way, if they do surgically extract... If they somehow kill our Painted Servant and surgically extract it, we can always turtle up behind the bridge and like manually grind them out, because destroying artifacts is very hard for the Death Shadow deck to do. And they've already used one of their bounce spell, which I think they usually have 2 of. They have 2 of these and 2 powder kegs usually. Now the question here is, do I play around our opponent having Street Wraith or not? If they have Street Wraith, we die here. But if they had Street Wraith last turn, they would have fired it off last turn. So I'm going to let this hit me, so that we have the ability, if we draw a land, to play around more things. If they have the Street Wraith, they've got us. But they would have cast it last. They would have cycled it last turn if they had it, in my opinion. That's the only instant speed way they can change their life total, I think. Okay. So far rewarded for that play. So now if we draw a land, we can grind them, and then if they try and remove our Painted Servant, we can swap it for the other Painted Servant. That falls down. There's the powder keg. Okay. This is a problem for us now, because this can blow up all of our 0 drops, which is 1, 2, 3 permanents. So that's not great for us. Yep. I have been talking about the powder keg all game, and there it is, and it's got us pretty good. A land? That's not a land. Well, isn't this annoying? So what we need to do is we have a choice next turn. We can either try and draw a Lion's Eye Diamond to win the game, or we can try and draw a red source to Goblin Engineer ourselves a Ensnaring Bridge to survive. Those are our 2 options. We need to make the decision this turn because one of these creatures has to die. So I think there is 1 Lion's Eye Diamond in our deck, but there are lots of red sources. So we should be blocking with our Painted Servant here. If we draw a land, pitch this, and it hits Lion's Eye Diamond, that would be amusing, because it means the following turn we can win. But this also now unlocks Snuff Out to kill our Goblin Engineer. So we're very much at the mercy of our opponent's hand here. So this is a case of playing to win or playing to... Okay, so there's the Snuff Out that I literally just said was unlocked. So I think we are dead here. Death by powder keg. A Mox Opal. So we did have the red source. So we did make the right call there. But we are dead. That was close. Yeah. I must say, I don't think Experimental Synthesizer is doing a lot of work in this deck list. In my opinion. That's my general... Like, obviously, if we get to do our thing and our welders get to do stuff, fine. But most of the time, these aren't actually doing anything for us so far. But that's sometimes the way it goes, and one of the reasons we're playing this deck is just to see what's possible, what works, what doesn't. So let's go on to the final match. We are on the play. We have a turn 3 win with this deck, with this hand, so we will keep it. We'll start out with an Urza's Saga. So on 3, this gets us... We also get to play this all ignoring the stack as well in terms of counter spells. A Flooded Strand. An Underground Sea. A Ponder. So my initial inclination would be that our opponent is playing Doomsday, because that is the deck that is most likely to fetch Underground Sea to cast a Ponder on turn 1. Generally speaking, the Death Shadows are going to be hurting themselves. Grief. Oh, wowzers. Wowzers trousers. Sure. So we could be looking at some sort of blue-black Reanimator deck. We do have ley lines, which is nice, but Okay, so we lose our Painter 7, so we can't kill our opponent on turn 3 anymore, which is a bit of a pity. Okay, we have a second Urza's Saga. We'll play this. We'll name Artificer. We'll tap this for white, tap this for colourless, and cast your friend of mine, Oswald Fiddlebender. If you watch my channel, you know I'm a big fan of the Fiddlebender. Although the amount of times I get griefed out by Caracas is certainly annoying me these days. I don't think we cast the Mox Opal this turn. Lose a Delta from our opponent. And a Ponder. Sure. So next turn we get to find some graveyard hate if we think that's what we need. Consider. I really don't know what our opponent is playing. I have to assume it's some sort of reanimate strategy. But it could just be playing Grief as like a good guy. So we'll add one for this. And then we will go and get... I think we're just going to get the Soulguide Lantern this turn. And we'll get rid of this Grief. I think that's the safest play. So we can play out this Ensnaring Bridge this turn. And then if that resolves, we can play out a Mox Opal and cycle it into something else. This does play into Daze, which I have to imagine is something our opponent has. Alternatively, we can play this Mox Opal and turn it into an Experimental Synthesizer or something. But we will need an additional artifact to get that turned on. I think we just play the Ensnaring Bridge here. I mean, it's the highest upside for us. This guy's attacking this turn. We could have cycled our Mox out. Force of Will on the Mox Opal. Interesting. Misdirection. What is our opponent playing? 3 Underground Seas. It is a Doomsday. So if we exile our opponent's... Yeah, if we exile our opponent's graveyard now, they can't do a Consider pile. But if we leave this in play, we can go and get an Ethersworn Canonist, which might provide a lot of use here. Or we can go and get a Pithing Needle. So I think we allow this. I think we allow them to do a Consider pile if they want. Because if they put the Consider in the pile, then we get to see how many cyclers are in their pile pretty much. So we can work out what it's best to go and find. Okay, they are doing a Consider pile. Because this is highlighted right here. Okay, so let's see what our opponent's got. So they got Grief in the Doomsday pile. The Grief in the Doomsday deck. So how many cyclers are we looking at here? All of them? Oh wow, they're just taking us out this turn. Yeah, okay, they just have us. There's a Consider. There's the Age of Autumn. And here's another Age of Autumn, and then there's the Thassa's Oracle. Sure, we're dead. Alright, so we've got some stuff for this. The Orb is good. The Red Blast is good. The Canonist has text. Which of these are no good? The Haywire Mite isn't going to do us anything. The Ensnaring Bridge is not going to do anything here. The Twin Shot Sniper is not going to do anything here. So that's easy cuts. Now, do we want any of these things in? Any of these things out? The Portable Hole can snag like a Lotus Petal or something. But that's not very exciting to me. I think Haywire Mite does the same thing, but can also pressure their life total, albeit in a very small fashion. Synthesizer is good. Pithing Needle is fine. Shadowspear can be okay. Soulguide Lantern can potentially mess with their piles a little bit. I don't really think we have better options, so I think we probably have to just keep the Soulguide Lantern here. It is an artifact that turns on our things and only costs 1 mana, and we can cycle it into other things. So I think we're going to submit like this. Let's see how this selection of cards works. 1, 2. So we can Goblin Welder on 1. I think this is fine. Opponent's mulligan to 6 so far. So we have a choice on turn 1. If we hold up the Pyroblast or we deploy the Welder. These are our 2 choices. Either way, it starts with a Mox Opal, I think. Okay. So we can play out the Saga to try and get the win sooner. It's a tricky one. Really not sure. what to do here. Like if I play the Welder out, I think it's got to be the Welder here. This opens up some really explosive lines like Diamonds lines. Okay, we're getting a Force of Will on that. Okay, clearly the Welder was pretty good. We'll play this lines like Diamond. Pitch to Brainstorm, which is nice for us. So if we can get another artifact into play, we can start doing things with our Mox Opal. Underground Sea Ponder. Sure. So the Pyroblast wouldn't have been something I wanted to cast. Like, I Pyroblast a personal tutor, but I wouldn't Pyroblast a Ponder or anything. Haywire Mite. So that's not very exciting right now. It does turn on our Mox Opal though. Maybe cast a Fiddlebender here. So this gives us access to the combo quite quickly. We only have 2 artifacts, unfortunately. We can't play Glimmer Void, that's for sure. That doesn't work in this deck. A Brainstorm, sure. They did shuffle off their Ponder before, in case you were curious. I really like this Haywire Mite card, by the way. Big fan. So next turn we can play the Haywire Mite and then Fiddlebender it into a Painted Servant whilst holding up Pyroblast. And then the following turn we get to combo off. Grindstone can also just be randomly good against the Doomsday deck as well. Let's see what we draw. A Painted Servant. Okay. I think we're incentivized to just cast this guy like this. We'll name Blue. So our Pyroblast can counter a Doomsday. So we will attack this turn. Anything that reduces our opponent's life total makes Doomsdays more difficult for our opponent to resolve, because they need to keep an idea of what's on the board. So we have the ability to combo them next turn with Pyroblast backup. And we can play around days. A Cabal Ritual. This is fine. A Doomsday. Is this worth Pyroblasting this turn? I don't think so. I think we let them have the Doomsday this turn, and if they cast a blue spell to get into their pile, we can Pyroblast that, but we have the kill on our turn. So I think the onus... they will have to cast another spell, and then they only have 1 card in hand, so they won't be able to Force of Will us. And we can pay around days. It does require us to draw another mana source to win, but that seems a relatively more likely thing to have happen. Ideally, I'd not like to use my lines like Diamond though. They have already played their land this turn as well, so if they do daze us, they're going to be out of mana with whatever their draw effect is. So I think it's going to be very hard for our opponent to win this turn. So what we got here. We can also see if they've gone for any like weird shouldered or opposition agent things. No, just the griefs. Cavern of Souls not in the pile. Here is the Consider. Interesting. I think we Pyroblast this because they only have 1 card in hand. Sure. There we go. Quite happy with how I sideboarded. Our opponent doesn't have any of the sideboard dukes that I could see there. It was just the griefs. So I think we are okay to resubmit like this. This hand is a little bit on the slow side. We do have the Pyroblast and the Canonist. I think we can keep this. A Ponder, sure. So we can hold up Pyroblast for our opponent's next turn. This is better than playing the Experimental Synthesizer, because we can't play anything off of it either. A Dire Ritual. It's going to be into a Doomsday. It is into a Doomsday. Okay. So we have a Pyroblast. This is our way of defending ourselves. So our opponent's made their pile. So what we're looking at here. No Lion's Eye Diamond. No Consider. There is 1 Street Wraith still in there. 2 Street Wraiths here. Okay. They do have opposition agents this time. There's 2 Street Wraiths and an Edge of Autumn. Okay. The Cavern of Souls is in their pile. So just going to do a slow pass the turn pile. How do we beat this? Cast Torpor Orbs, probably a good shout. Mox Opal. So we will name... This is awkward. This is a human cleric. So I think casting this is step 1. So I can't cancel this. It's brainstorm. Play this out. It's not live yet, unfortunately. And then we pass. So that gets another card out of their deck. Spire Industry is a pretty reasonable draw. I think we cast our Painter's Servant here. So the bottom 2 cards of the library could just be Thassa's Oracle or Thassa's Oracle, if needs be. I don't think we can afford to Pyroblast that, unfortunately. We've already played a land, so this synthesizer isn't doing anything, which is a recurring theme. Okay, we're kind of on the let's hope our Pyroblast can interact with our opponent plan. Interesting. Our Mana Confluence. So I think we have to pay red for the synthesizer here. This will also give us Metalcraft, which has previously been eluding us. Where are you going to find us? A Torpor Orb. That's a very good hit. Opponent's got 3 cards in hand. So we will cast this Torpor Orb. We can Pyroblast them, and they can't cast another spell. So this should be game, I think. Yeah, we got it. Okay, so we got the 3-2. Not bad, not bad. All right, let's have a little look at the deck. Well, the synthesizer really came in for us at the end there. It had been terrible all league, but then right at the end it was great. So even though the decks that I looked at before and took this from and just tweaked the mana base. So I pretty much took like Lightwalker's deck and cut a portable hole for a Haywire Mite and then messed with the mana base. Now the previous mana base had some fetch lands, some basics and some plateaus instead of our rainbow stuff, which is, you know, much of a muchness. Technically it means that those lists had slightly less land because they had fetch lands, so they thinned slightly as soon as you crack the first one. So in theory our mana base should have been drawing us lands like 0.5% more or something stupid like that. Obviously, not having basics means we got Wastelanded, which certainly happened in the Death Shadow game. So this mana base felt okay, but definitely had limitations. Now, I think you can build a better version of this mana base, but I think the idea of having the Cavern of Souls was quite nice, as well as having all these other bits and pieces going on. So I think the question is, what multicolored, like non-red white spells or abilities do you want in this deck? So we could be running things like Prismatic Ending as an option as well, and there's probably some other things. And if you've got any ideas, I'd love to hear them in the comments of things that you can, reasons to play these cards. So there's a bunch of other artificers you could play as well, which is important, but we'll get to that on another league, I'm sure. So how do I feel about matchups? The Death Shadow matchup was basically came down to that last turn Powder Keg. If they don't have that, I think that game's probably a lock for us. So that's fine. And we got beaten by the Newton Elves deck, where we just couldn't get through their things. They had a quite removal heavy draw, and then they went and got their Grist. Well, I say removal heavy. They had a piece of removals, and they had the Grist as well. And they had the Caracas for our Oswald, which I think was the real clutch turn. But my immediate take is possibly the deck needs some more mana. And these experimental synthesizers did not feel good throughout the league. I think this is probably the slot that I would look to mess around with. Now, obviously, we didn't play a lot of control decks. That's where this card is really going to shine and give you loads of extra value. But Legacy is careening away from control decks at the moment because of the popularity of Stompy decks and the fact that combo decks are one of the ways of fighting the Stompy decks. And we've also got Delver is still, like, you know, one of the best decks in the format. It means that so much of the meta is skewed towards the first few turns that having a card that doesn't really do anything like this until you get to the late game where you can grind it for value, I don't think we can realistically... I don't think it's a realistic option for the way the meta is now. Obviously, the list I took this from was pre-White Stompy being online, so the meta has dramatically shifted since then. So these were probably much better when there's a lot more like Hot Bant and Shark Still type stuff going around, and the games are going longer, and you can actually experimental synthesize your way out of games. So I think the card's good. I just don't think... I think the meta is making it less good, which means we free up a slot to do something with. Now, quite what that something is going to be, I don't know. But I'll have a think about it. And I'm definitely going to run various Painter decks. You know me, I play Painter quite often on here. I have a foil mono white Painter deck in paper. So you're going to see me playing some of these things. And I don't play the Goblin Painter as much as I should. I think it's a good fun deck. So this deck definitely has legs. I think making the synthesizer into something else and then possibly tweaking the mana base to fix it a little bit and then finding some more reasons to play. Like this deck was kind of built relatively rushed in terms of the adaptation from the previous lists so that I could try out the mana base, and I wanted to play this Haywire Mite, which I really like. So I kind of threw these things in to see how they would function. So it was more of an experiment to see where we were going with things rather than a final list. But I think you can agree that the power level is certainly there, and the games where we get more mana would be nice. Like we still won some of the games where we got a bit behind on mana, so it's certainly possible to get things going with this deck. Yeah, I think those are the things to look at going forward, and I would really love to hear from you about what you think I should do with this. And I know the people in the Painter Discord who which is one of the Magic Discords I frequent most. I know that they'll certainly have something to say about this. So yeah, I think that's about it. If you're still here, why not subscribe to my video? And if you've already subscribed, why not send some likes my way? Or some comments or anything, or share my links in Legacy Discords or Facebook groups or whatever. I need followers. I make Legacy content, and Legacy is a great format. So the more people we can get playing Legacy, the better. And if I can inspire someone to pick up some Legacy, that's one more person to bump into in a league and makes the format wider and healthier. All right, I think I've spoken long enough, and I'm going to go to bed now. My throat is quite sore from this cold I have. So thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.